There was something about Oak Island that experts never saw coming. A discovery so unexpected, it could finally bring an end to a mystery that's lasted more than 200 years. For the first time ever, someone stopped speculating and actually identified the exact location where a $300 million treasure is believed to be buried. That person was Emma Culligan. Her findings were so precise, so surprising, and so impossible to dismiss that the Oak Island team felt they had no choice but to investigate immediately. Why? Because Emma didn't just suggest another possible site. She uncovered a flawless alignment between ancient pirate symbols, long-forgotten survey markers, and underground void scans, all converging on a single, untouched spot on the island. A place no one had ever dug before. If she was right, this could be the moment the world's longest-running treasure mystery finally breaks open. So don't look away, because what comes next could be the biggest breakthrough Oak Island has ever seen. And before we continue, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps us bring you more incredible discoveries like this one. The morning Emma Culligan returned to Oak Island, the atmosphere felt different. The usual restless winds were gone, replaced by an eerie stillness, as if the island itself was holding its breath. Emma stepped out of the truck with a calm, focused determination that Rick Lagina noticed instantly. There was something in her eyes, a quiet certainty. She didn't look like someone arriving to search. She looked like someone coming back to confirm what she already knew. Rick had seen hundreds of people pass through the island over the years. Experts, theorists, engineers, researchers, each with their own ideas. But Emma moved differently. She wasn't chasing a theory. She walked like someone who already knew exactly where the truth was buried. A heavy morning fog hung low over the swamp, rolling in thick, slow waves that muted sound and gave the area an ancient, almost sacred feeling. The mist wrapped around Emma's boots as she made her way towards the center of the swamp, as though the island itself was reluctant to reveal what she was about to uncover. Rick followed closely, watching as Emma studied decades of survey maps he had pored over for most of his life. Maps that formed the backbone of Oak Island's entire legacy. Yet Emma examined them as if they were written in a forgotten language only she could read. She ignored the obvious markings and focused instead on faint lines and overlooked details. She paused over shaded areas most researchers had dismissed entirely. Each time her finger stopped on a specific point, Rick felt a familiar tightening in his chest. The same feeling he'd had during moments when he believed they were on the verge of something big. For the first time in years, the island didn't feel silent or stubborn. It felt alive, as if something beneath the mud had finally sensed the right person had arrived. Generations had whispered about a hidden vault, about a $300 million treasure. Standing there, those stories no longer felt like legends. They felt close, almost too close. Emma knelt near the center of the swamp, pressed her gloved hand into the damp soil, and gave a small nod, as if confirming a suspicion she'd carried for a long time. Then she waved the team over. The moment her equipment activated, everything changed. A faint distortion appeared beneath the swamp. Subtle, almost ghostly, but unmistakable. Rick frowned. He'd seen plenty of false readings over the years. Glitches, anomalies, misleading signals. But this was different. Emma adjusted the settings, and the image sharpened. The ground density didn't match natural swamp formations. It didn't align with normal sediment layers. It didn't resemble anything that should exist beneath an untouched wetland. Instead, it showed signs of deliberate engineering, compressed soil, layered construction, and structural intent dating back centuries. Rick caught his breath. Emma swept the scan across the area again. That's when the image appeared. Perfectly straight edges, clean corners, and a hollow space that didn't curve or collapse like a natural cave. This wasn't erosion. This was geometry. Precise, controlled, intentional. This isn't natural, Emma said quietly. Someone built this. The team exchanged looks. Not excitement, not disbelief, but something heavier. In all the years of searching, all the hopeful scans that led nowhere, Nothing had ever looked this clear, this deliberate. This wasn't a clue. It wasn't a maybe. It was a design. Rick stepped closer to the screen, his jaw tight, his hands slightly unsteady. They weren't looking at a random anomaly. They were staring at what looked like a blueprint, a vault layout. The kind of structure you only build to protect something incredibly valuable, incredibly dangerous, or potentially world-changing. Emma's expression was a mix of adrenaline and absolute confidence. "This is the heart of the island," she said. Not as a theory, as a fact, but she wasn't done. She pulled up archived Templar schematics on her tablet, vault designs from the 1300s, underground storage systems, collapsible chambers, and diversion tunnels. Then she overlaid them with the Oak Island swamp scans. The match was undeniable. The angles aligned. The dimensions lined up. Even the measurements were close enough to erase doubt. Emma explained that medieval Templar vaults often hid entrances beneath false sediment layers, especially when storing treasure far from home. Wet environments like swamps helped preserve wooden structures, slowed decay, and discouraged unauthorized digging. Suddenly, Rick remembered a story his father used to tell. A strange, half-dismissed tale about something hidden beneath the swamp. An underground nest that early treasure hunters believed held something important. Rick had always brushed it off as folklore. Now, looking at Emma's data, he realized those old whispers might have been closer to the truth than anyone ever imagined. Emma then brought up a Nova Scotia Templar route map, one historians had long criticized as inaccurate. She pointed to a missing marker near Oak Island, a symbol most experts had written off as a cartographer's error. But when she aligned that missing marker with her new coordinates, everything fell into place. Tunnel angles, chamber placement, swamp location. It all fit into a single, deliberate design, one that had been hiding in plain sight for centuries. Then, Emma revealed the detail that changed everything. This chamber, she explained, wasn't built just to store gold. It was a repository, a sealed space designed to protect documents, knowledge, and possibly artifacts that were never meant to be discovered unless someone understood the system behind it. Rick stared at her, absorbing the weight of what she was saying. If Emma was right, they weren't simply standing above a $300 million treasure. They were standing above a vault capable of reshaping North American history. This wasn't something hidden by chance. It was carefully designed, precisely engineered, and deliberately buried beneath a swamp so that ordinary digging would never reach it. For the first time since Rick Lagina first set foot on Oak Island decades earlier, the treasure no longer felt like a myth. It felt real, measurable, traceable, and within reach. Without saying a word, Emma moved to the map table and laid a transparent overlay across the scans. Rick leaned closer as lines formed circles, arcs, and angles, not structural patterns, but astronomical ones. She tapped the center, and the display shifted, revealing the night sky as it appeared in the year 1347. Immediately, the swamp location they had just examined aligned with an invisible axis running north. As she rotated the projection, Polaris, the North Star, hovered directly above the center of the swamp. This wasn't coincidence. The coordinates mirrored the pole star with precise mathematical accuracy. Emma explained that early Templar vaults weren't hidden using surface markers alone. Entrances, tunnels, and secondary chambers were encoded using celestial geometry. Without accounting for the correct historical star positions, every searcher had unknowingly been looking in the wrong place. She ran a timeline forward, rotating the sky across the centuries. Rick watched as the alignment slowly drifted away from the swamp. Emma explained that every excavation on Oak Island had relied on modern star maps instead of historical ones. The result was a misalignment of just a few meters, but those few meters were enough to doom every attempt, turn collapses into bad luck, and make flooding seem random. When Emma returned the projection to the 1300s alignment, everything locked perfectly into place. The star paths formed a triangular geometry that pointed to a single apex, Emma's exact location. Rick couldn't speak. In one night, she had undone centuries of misunderstanding, countless failed digs, enormous financial losses, and the disappointment of generations of treasure hunters. The island hadn't changed. The swamp hadn't changed. Only the perspective had. Before the team could fully process it, they moved to the swamp with the new coordinates marked. The first probe slipped beneath the water and sank into mud that felt unusually dense, almost resistant. As it descended, slow bubbles rose to the surface, measured, controlled, as though the swamp itself were releasing trapped breath. This wasn't how ordinary mud behaved. Marty crouched near the edge, watching the pattern. He said it felt like pressure equalizing, like they had just pierced a chamber that had remained sealed for centuries. The bubbles weren't random. They pulsed rhythmically, suggesting a closed space below releasing trapped air. Emma didn't react emotionally. She simply noted that this was exactly what she expected. She explained that Templar engineers were experts in hydraulic misdirection. They layered swamps to conceal vault entrances, using water pressure to seal and preserve what lay beneath. The reaction wasn't a warning, it was confirmation. As the gas dissipated, a faint scent rose from the surface. Rick noticed it first. It was ancient and earthy, with a hint of preserved wood. Not rot, but timber that had been sealed away from oxygen for centuries. He looked at Marty, and they shared the same realization. They weren't just probing mud. They were interacting with the environment left behind by the original builders. As the probe continued downward, the readings became clearer. Soft sediment gave way to something firmer, possibly compacted clay walls or collapsed structural beams. The swamp's surface tension shifted, creating subtle ripples that formed faint geometric patterns. It no longer felt like a swamp. It felt like camouflage. Emma studied the stabilized data, her focus sharpening. Everything she had predicted from the celestial alignment was matching the physical evidence. The stars dictated the placement. The swamp concealed it. The pressure preserved it. And now all three systems were responding at once. She opened a new dataset on her tablet, seismic readings from earlier deep tests. Normally, these scans were chaotic due to the island's fractured geology. But when the new alignment was applied, the data organized itself. Not into a single chamber, but into something larger and branching. Emma filtered out lower frequency noise, and slowly, a long, sloping disturbance appeared beneath the chamber they had already identified. Rick leaned in, barely breathing. This wasn't a random cavity. It was linear, consistent, and clearly man-made. Emma isolated the structure and overlaid angle measurements. The slope closely matched medieval Portuguese fort bunkers, structures designed with angled tunnels used for both secure storage and emergency escape routes. Rick had seen countless tunnel signals over the years that turned out to be nothing. Natural cracks, water channels, false positives. But this one was different. The signal was smooth, rhythmic, intentional. A tunnel. The team watched as Emma traced it deeper into the earth. It didn't fade like natural voids usually did. Instead, it curved gently, following the exact geometry dictated by the Polaris alignment. Then came the moment that sent a chill through everyone watching. About 40 feet beyond the main chamber, a secondary echo appeared, a rectangular void. The edges reflected a stronger signal than wood or clay. Stone. Emma froze the image. The angles were sharp and precise. As she zoomed in, the outline became unmistakable. A stone door, intact, undisturbed, hidden from centuries of water and time. Rick felt a cold rush down his spine. He had imagined Oak Island tunnels his entire life, but none had ever been proven like this. Until now. Nothing they had ever found before offered this level of structural certainty. "This is the most clearly defined tunnel we've ever seen," Rick said quietly, almost afraid to believe it. Marty didn't disagree. The evidence was simply too precise to dismiss. Emma stepped closer to the projected map, her voice calm and assured. This system, she explained, wasn't built solely to conceal treasure. It was engineered to protect people, or to provide an escape route if the vault was ever threatened. A dual-purpose design. Rare, sophisticated, and almost unheard of to survive 7 centuries of storms, flooding, and human interference. Yet here it was, still intact beneath the swamp, still guarding whatever the Templars had sealed away. With the tunnel fully traced and the celestial alignment confirmed, Emma directed the team to run a deeper seismic scan along the length of the corridor. As the probe moved forward, the readings grew sharper. At the far end of the vaulted chamber, a dense cluster of signals appeared, so concentrated that the software briefly struggled to process it. This wasn't the soft echo of wood. It wasn't the clean, uniform response of stone. It was jagged, layered, heavy, metallic, but not a single solid object. Emma magnified the image as the density map shifted into deep reds and blacks, the unmistakable signature of extreme mass. The shapes overlapped like compressed plates or collapsed bars fused together over time. Marty leaned in, his eyes widening. He recognized the frequency pattern from archaeological studies in Europe, vaults in Spain where gold ingots, chalices, and ceremonial relics had merged together underground after centuries of pressure. The match was nearly perfect. Emma expanded the mass field and ran a weight calculation. The system analyzed density, volume, depth, and resistance. When the result appeared, she paused and drew in a breath. Just under 4,000 pounds. Rick stared, stunned. 4,000 pounds of metallic material, sealed inside a chamber designed for stability, protected by celestial alignment, and preserved beneath a pressure-controlled swamp. Emma recalibrated and ran the numbers again. The result didn't change. Only a concentrated cache of stacked metal objects, or an enormous hoard of gold, could produce a signal like this. Even at today's values, a fraction of that mass could exceed $300 million. And if the objects were not simple bars, but ornate Templar reliquaries or ceremonial treasures, their true worth could be far greater. This chamber wasn't just hiding wealth, it was hiding purpose. Rick stepped back, overwhelmed by the weight of the realization. For decades, he had dug, sifted, scanned, theorized, and hoped to one day stand within reach of undeniable proof. And yet, the swamp, the very place they had drained, analyzed, dismissed, and returned to again and again, had held its secret just beyond their grasp the entire time. He thought back to his earliest days on the island, when he still believed the treasure carried something almost mystical. His father had once said it wasn't simply hidden. It wanted to be found by the right person. Watching Emma work, calmly aligning star charts with seismic data, decoding patterns with absolute clarity, Rick understood something he had never allowed himself to consider. Maybe the island had been waiting for her. Every false lead, every collapse, every failed dig. They hadn't been obstacles. They had redirected the search away from the money pit and toward this exact moment. For the first time, Rick didn't feel the island resisting him. He felt it responding. Emma cross-referenced the mass readings with the tunnel slope once more, tightening her calculations. The data locked into place as if a mechanism had finally been engaged. The correct sequence entered at last. The weight of decades pressed down on Rick so heavily, he had to brace himself against the equipment table. He looked at Emma and spoke barely above a whisper. "You may have solved the island." Emma didn't respond. She was already pulling up 2 centuries of excavation theories, diagrams of the money pit, flood tunnels, collapsed cribbing, and the legendary layers of logs. One by one, she broke them down digitally and overlaid them onto the new swamp data. What emerged wasn't a contradiction, it was a correction. For generations, treasure hunters had believed the money pit was the center of everything. But Emma pointed out flaw after flaw. Inconsistencies in early accounts, engineering feats that made no sense for medieval builders, and one undeniable truth: no skilled engineer would ever design a vertical shaft to protect something priceless. The money pit wasn't a vault. It wasn't even meant to store anything. It was a decoy. Emma presented evidence showing that its construction matched known Templar misdirection tactics, false shafts designed to collapse, flood, and frustrate intruders. The goal was never to hide the treasure there. The goal was to draw attention away from the real vault, positioned horizontally and accessed through the concealed chamber beneath the swamp. Suddenly, the infamous flood tunnels made sense. They weren't accidents. They were alarms, hydraulic traps engineered to activate when pressure changed near the money pit, ensuring that anyone digging there would be stopped long before reaching the true repository. Marty let out a slow breath as the realization settled in. Every collapse, every setback, every maddening failure. They hadn't been mistakes, they had been protections. The island wasn't a chaotic puzzle. It was a carefully executed strategy, designed by a culture renowned for burying truth beneath layers of deliberate confusion. Emma showed how even the earliest treasure hunters in the 1700s had unknowingly triggered the island's defenses by digging in the wrong place. From that moment on, every searcher followed the same flawed assumption, that the pit was the heart of the mystery. Now, with celestial geometry, seismic mapping, and structural logic finally aligned, the truth became impossible to ignore. The vault was never beneath the pit. It was always meant to be approached sideways, through the star-aligned swamp chamber, down the sloping tunnel, and into the stone-sealed vault where the metallic mass had waited, untouched. The map transformed before their eyes. No longer a mess of competing theories, but a single, elegant design. What they were seeing wasn't random. It was a deliberate sequence of alignment, deception, and preservation, engineered by people who expected intruders centuries in advance. The chamber, the tunnel, the stone door, and the metallic hoard weren't isolated discoveries. They were parts of a single architectural plan, executed with precision and hidden with purpose. In that moment, the story of Oak Island changed. It was no longer a place defined by confusion and endless speculation. It revealed itself as the execution of a grand strategy, one that Emma Culligan had just unraveled piece by piece. Confident that the digital model matched the underground scans perfectly, Emma guided the team back toward the swamp, her eyes searching the ground for any physical sign that would confirm the map in the real world. Then it happened. As she brushed away a thin layer of mud, a sharply carved stone triangle emerged beneath her glove. Its edges were too clean, its symmetry too exact to be natural. Rick nearly dropped to his knees. The symbol was unmistakable. The same geometric language seen in Nolan's cross. The same mathematical code carved into the very framework of Oak Island. But this triangle was different. It pointed like an arrow, aimed directly at the anomaly Emma had identified. A marker that had waited centuries for someone who could finally understand it. Marty traced the angle with a laser level, and the beam cut straight across the swamp, landing precisely on the coordinates Emma had calculated. The alignment matched the celestial path from 1347, when the North Star occupied its historical position during the final years of the Templar dispersal. The team fell silent, not because it felt coincidental, but because it clearly wasn't. The geometry, the star alignment, the precision of Templar-era design, everything fit together with an almost unbelievable clarity. Rick quietly remarked that this was likely the marker every previous search team had unknowingly walked over, never realizing its importance. Now exposed and undeniable, it completed the connection between map, ground, and vault. It was physical proof of everything Emma had decoded. The winch rattled as the probe was lowered into a narrow opening. Emma adjusted her measurements. For the first time all season, no one spoke, not even Jack. The metal rod slipped through soft peat, then silt, then dense clay, until it struck something solid. A hollow, structured sound echoed back, the unmistakable knock of worked wood. Emma's pulse jumped. She cleared the monitor and identified the material by its density signature. Medieval oak, waterlogged, heavy, and remarkably preserved. The same type of wood historically documented in Templar storage chests. They lowered a second probe. This time, the sound was different. A sharp metallic ring traveled up the cable like a whisper from deep below. Everyone froze. This wasn't debris. It wasn't stone. It was something forged. Something valuable. Emma marked the depth, 27.44 feet. exactly where her model had predicted days before the scans even began. Rick looked at her, his hands trembling. Guesswork was over. They were no longer searching blindly. They were following instructions written 7 centuries earlier by people who fully expected this vault to be discovered long after they were gone. As Emma ran the final calculations, the data settled into one unmistakable conclusion. The mass readings matched high-density, non-ferrous metal. The shapes formed stacked rectangular clusters. The resonance values were identical to verified gold bullion signatures. The stone-lined vault appeared untouched. Nothing had shifted. Nothing had collapsed. Nothing had leaked. It was sealed exactly as it had been built. Emma turned to the team and spoke calmly, without hesitation or dramatics. This is the highest probability treasure vault ever identified on Oak Island. Rick's expression fell, not in fear, but in awe. Decades of searching. Decades of disappointment, persistence, and unanswered questions. And now, Emma had given him something no one else ever had. A real answer. She stepped forward and placed a simple red flag into the mud. No speech, no ceremony. Just a marker planted above coordinates her system had confirmed beyond doubt. As the sun dipped low over the swamp, golden reflections stretched across the water, as if the island itself were acknowledging the moment. 300 years of legend, misdirection, sacrifice, and obsession, all converging on a single point Emma Culligan had finally brought into focus. The place where the story might finally end, or where its greatest chapter was just beginning. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the Timefold channel for more incredible discoveries like this.